Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today, we're gonna go over something that I have been waiting for a very, very long time. This is, of course, finally a reason to actually tell you with facts that you need to go out there and get yourself a crafted BxR battler. Because I already think this pulse rifle is one of the best weapons in the entire game, but right now in our current sandbox, it's kind of a hard sell. Hand cannons, SMGs, auto rifles, they all outperform pulses, and I understand why most people look at a pulse and just kind of put it to the side. BxR is a bit of a unique case, but even with the things I'm going to talk about in a second, most people see that it's a pulse and just don't give it the time of day. But moving into the final shape, I can guarantee that BxR will become one of the most popular weapons in the game due to the buffs it's about to get. So before we talk why BxR specifically and not just pulse rifles in general, let's look at the actual general holistic pulse rifle buffs. The first one reads increased base PvE damage versus all combatants, pulse rifles plus 20%. So right at the gate, whether it's a boss, a mini boss, a yellow bar, or a red bar, you're doing 20% more damage. That is a lot, but that isn't where it ends at all. If we scroll down this blog post just a little bit, then we get the next buff that reads increased damage versus minors, which is red bars. This stacks with the base PvE damage increases from earlier. Auto rifles and pulse rifles plus 15%. So here Bungie lays it out. For pulse rifles, this is in addition to the above buff, and then they do the math for us. Pulse rifles will do 20% from the first buff, and then plus 15% for that buff to red bar specifically, equaling to plus 38% damage to minors. That is a ton. That is like increasing our current pulse rifles to the level that exotic pulse rifles are with that 40% increase. On a side note, yes, that 40% increase is decreasing to 30% when the final shape launches, but exotic pulses will get this 38% buff as well, so those will be feeling amazing. That being said, I still think BxR is going to clear those, which we'll get into now. So of course, the final shape launches at base, it's doing plus 38% damage. But now we need to talk about the things that make BxR unique, being its perk pools and its special frame. So first, perk-wise, there's 3 roles in my mind. The number one thing that you absolutely need is incandescent. I don't think there's any argument there. You get scorching, you get ignitions, you get ad clear, you get subclass synergy. Incandescent is just broken. I really don't need to go on about this. What comes after incandescent, however, is the perk you put in your third column, which for me is both pugilist and demolitionist. I do either or. Normally, I'm rocking a Sunbracers build, so I rock Enhanced Pugilist, but if you're rocking a Healing Grenade build or something for survivability or whatever, you can use Demolitionist. Either of these will synergize extremely well with Incandescent and will just increase your ability uptime by a ton. But you might be looking at this, you're like, okay, yeah, it's just a pulse rifle with a good roll. I can go get a different pulse rifle. I can use Zauli's Bane, I can use whatever and reach similar heights, but what else is there to draw me to this weapon? Which brings me to just how the weapon feels. The BxR is the one-of-a-kind legacy PR55 frame, which says customized frame with dramatically increased accuracy, stability, and targeting while hip firing. And that's the kicker, guys. That is what makes this weapon so incredibly desirable. You've been watching in the background gameplay and you're hopefully seeing it now. You can just use this pulse rifle everywhere. You can hip fire it if something gets close, you got some thrall rushing you, easy. You don't miss out on the crits, you got the target acquisition, you can hip fire it like an SMG. Oh, but then you've got a knight, you've got a sniper. Way out in the distance, you can ADS and you've got pulse rifle range to take care of it. One of the draws that I see a lot of people talking about when it comes to Sunshot and Zauli's Bane and things with explosive payload is that explosive payload doesn't have damage fall off, so you can still do damage outside of the intended ranges. But let me tell you, pulse rifles, when you ADS, have great range, and there's hardly any places where you're gonna see that damage fall off. But of course, that's a no-brainer because pulse rifles are a long-range weapon. The super unique part is that ability to hip fire. Most pulse rifles, again, just feel clunky when you're doing close quarter combat. BxR excels there. And if you've ever used this weapon, you can attest to that. The BxR plays like an SMG. But the last thing that I want to talk about after going over the buff, the perks, and just why this weapon feels so good is the actual numbers moving into the final shape. According to this graph from Mossy Max on Twitter, we won't talk about it too long. I know numbers can be kind of scary, but just look at this section here. This is pulse rifles and their DPS when the final shape launches. These boxes here are our other primary weapons. Pulse rifles are pretty much in the lead except for sidearms. but they're better than submachine guns. They only fall behind hand cannons in burst DPS, and they're much better than auto rifles and scout rifles. Sidearms still kind of have them beat, but we all know that sidearms have always been pretty much kings of DPS. It's just their ease of use is fairly low. But before I put this graph away, again, just look how pulse rifles are poised to be at the top of the DPS charts, meaning they're going to feel the best damage-wise. But damage isn't it. If the weapon doesn't feel good to use, hence sidearms, then people aren't going to use it. And that is why BxR will be the king of primary weapons when the final shape launches, because it feels amazing. You got the close range combat, you got the long range combat, then you've got the damage numbers to back it up, putting it at the top. I promise you guys, if you haven't used this weapon yet, which I already think it's one of the best in the game, you will need one crafted for the final shape. I guarantee that you'll fall in love with it. You'll understand why I have 20,000 plus kills on mine, and you'll start racking them up on your very own. And that's really all I've got to say. There have been very few topics I've covered that have got me as passionate as this, because I truly believe that the BxR is an incredible weapon. I love it, and I think you will too, and I'm gonna stop gushing about it. If you wanna support me and support the channel, a like, a comment, a subscription goes a long way. I'd love to hear your thoughts on maybe you already were a BxR fan. I know there's gotta be some of you out there. Or maybe tell me why you're a BxR hater. It's okay, I understand you'll convert when the final shape launches. But other than that, if you wanna support me and support the channel, but you can't think of a comment down below, BxR. And with that, as usual, I hope you are having a great day, and I hope to see you around.